Hello to our freaky family. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Kandi.
And this is Sips of Crime. Episode 3! Welcome! Happy Valentine's Day!
Happy Valentine's Day!
Yay! So, Kandi, what are we drinking today?
We have a Riesling by Lone Orchid from Columbia Valley, Washington State.
I love Riesling. Oh, that's good. Sorry.
My bad. I couldn't see.
A little heavy-handed there.
Sorry.
Cheers. That's a drier Riesling.
It is drier. Was not prepared.
I just looked over at Kandi and she has the sour grape face.
I was not prepared for it to be that dry. It's not terrible. It's good.
Earlier we were drinking a sweeter wine and we switched to this one for the podcast, and going from sweet to dry is probably what... Take another sip. Try. Second time's better.
I don't know. I mean, if you can handle a drier wine, I mean, it's nothing like a Chardonnay.
It's not a Chardonnay. It's definitely not like a Cabernet Sauvignon.
But I do feel like I've had sweeter Rieslings. It's not bad. It is good. I mean, I'm gonna drink it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we don't waste wine on this podcast. That's for sure. So today we actually have another survivor's tale for you guys. So today we are talking about Mary Stauffer, who actually was abducted by her stalker in 1980. So grab a glass.
Grab a friend.
And let's dive in. So Mary Stauffer was in a happy marriage in 1980 with her husband, Irv Stauffer, and they had 2 children, Elizabeth, who they called Beth, she was 8, and Stephen, who was 6. Mary, who was 36 at the time, and the family had almost finished packing in preparation for a 4-year missionary trip to the Philippines. Prior to her husband becoming a pastor, she was a 9th grade math teacher for several years. Now, a lot of the research that I did and stuff that I found to be most useful when I researched this case was actually an interview with Mary herself.
Oh, nice.
Yes, that actually took place in 2019. The interview was with Rick Wegman on October 3rd, 2019, and it was published in the Twin Cities Pioneer Press. So if you guys want to check that out. But for that reason, I'm going to be utilizing the term Mary recalls when I'm quoting her, because this was her recalling this event to the interviewer. So just a little heads up there. On Friday, May 16th in 1980, Mary and Beth had a busy day and were leaving a beauty salon in Roseville, Minnesota, after they had their hair done. Mary recalls unlocking the passenger door of their 1973 Ford LTD supplied to them by the church when a man with thick glasses approached them. Mary says, "I thought maybe he just wanted directions. He had a gun in his waistband and he put it at Beth's side and said, 'I need a ride.' I was already ready to give him my car keys," unquote. He then forced them into their car and told Mary to drive north. Now, Mary and her daughter are both obviously terrified at this point. I mean, who wouldn't be? And when they finally arrived to their destination where the abductor had parked his car, he tied them together and covered their mouths with tape and forced them into his trunk. Now, while this was happening, 2 young boys noticed something was going on. One of them, by the name of Jason Wilkman, walked over to the trunk, seeing both Mary and Beth tied up in it. And before he could even say anything, this piece of garbage threw Jason, who was only 6 years old, into the trunk as well and drove away.
So we don't know what happened to the other boy? I mean...
Not yet.
Oh, no.
Mm-mm. The next time the car stopped, he took Jason out of the trunk, fatally hit him in the head with a metal rod, and left his body in the woods.
That's so freaking sad.
I know. The one with kids in it really gets to me. That's Jason.
Look how precious.
Yeah, he's so sweet. Eventually, their abductor took them to an electronics store he owned simply named Sound Equipment Services, because this man is stupid and couldn't come up with anything better. He allowed them to use the bathroom before blindfolding them in the dark of night, putting them into the back of his windowless van, and driving to his family's home nearby Roseville, only 6 miles from where Mary and her family lived. That's it.
That's really creepy.
Yes. When they arrived at his house in Roseville, he locked Mary and Beth in a closet that was only 21 inches wide and 4 feet long. They were still tied together, and Mary recalls, "The closet was obviously prepared for us because there were no clothes hanging on the rod. There were some blankets and plastic bags on the shelf, a light bulb with a pull chain, and a scatter rug with 2 small pillows on the floor." The next day, he took Mary out, tied her up in the living room, and reveals his identity to her. His name was Ming Sen Shu, now 29 years old, who was a former student of Mary's from when she taught 9th grade algebra at Alexander Ramsey High School in Roseville. A simple schoolboy crush had turned into an actual obsession in the 15 years leading up to his ballsy middle-of-the-day abduction. He also told her that he'd been looking for her for a long time, and unbeknownst to her, had aggressively stalked her and her family and tried to abduct her at least 4 other times before this.
I mean, how much of an obsession can you have of someone that so many years later you're still obsessed enough to go kidnap them?
Yeah.
And try multiple times.
Right. So that's him.
Look at
At 29.
big old glasses.
Yeah.
He looks creepy. Every
They all look
criminal
creepy.
looks so creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, I get, like, a lot of them are mugshots and stuff, but, like, in general.
Yeah.
Like, even, like, family pictures, like, when you see some, like, crime stories,
Mm-hmm.
or when you're watching, like, your crime shows,
Mm-hmm.
and they show you pictures of these people, like, growing up or whatever, they even look creepy then.
Yeah. So Ming Sen Shu was born October 15th, 1950, in Taiwan. When he was 8 years old, he moved to Minnesota with his mother and 2 siblings. His father, who died 3 years later, was a professor at the University of Minnesota. Shu was described as violent toward his younger siblings, often beating them during both adolescence and adulthood.
Okay, so right there should have been a telltale sign that something was up with him.
Yeah. In his teen years, Shu was reportedly engaged in criminal activity as a juvenile, such as starting fires in apartments of 3 strangers and throwing rocks at vehicles. For his role in the arsons, he was ordered to participate in psychotherapy at the age of 14.
Well, clearly it didn't work.
No, it did not. According to his mother, Shu often lied, but was persistent about being right, was uncontrollable as a child, and took no responsibility for his physical behavior, thus causing her to be fearful. She described him as someone having, quote, no feelings, like a dog, unquote.
I think my dog has feelings.
I think my dog would never murder anybody.
Well, no, but I'm pretty sure my dog has feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. My dog's definitely a nicer person than this person.
But there had to have been something that could have been done back when he was a child.
For
or
your
a teen.
mother? For your own mother? I mean, I think we said it in our last episode. Your mom's your biggest fan.
Right,
And
for her to fear you
and to say that you have no feelings like a dog? I mean, you had to... 5 years before this, on the 4th of July in 1975, Shu had broken into her in-laws' house in Duluth, Minnesota, because he thought that she lived there. This idiot has the wrong Mary Stauffer. It was her mother-in-law. Okay? The truth was that Mary and her family were actually in the Philippines on another missionary trip. She wasn't even in the country. So this pissed him off when he finds out that it's not her. And then he threatens her in-laws at gunpoint, tied them up, and told them that he'd kill them if they reported the break-ins. They never reported this to the police and only told Mary and their son after they returned from their 4-year trip in 1979. Once he learned where the correct Mary was living, he tried to break into the apartment 3 separate times. And once by trying to drill holes into their floor underneath her bed.
This man is creepy.
He is so creepy.
Like, who thinks to do that crap?
Yeah. It's so after the family finally moved out of that house, like after this whole thing happened, and Irv had to sweep up the sawdust from the holes he drilled. Stalking is terrifying. And unfortunately, it happens more often than people really think.
I did read that Irv was in the basement after the incident, and he saw shoe prints on the ground, and I guess the small holes were what he had drilled. And police suggested that someone that knew about electronics was probably listening to them.
Oh, like he had his house, he had the house bugged?
I guess, yeah.
And he had his own electronic shop.
Yeah. So you bugged her house too?
Oh my God. So this guy's a complete nut job. Over the next 53 days, he held them at his house, repeatedly raping Mary and threatening Beth. He recorded their conversations and the rapes on his camera. During one of their conversations, he told Mary that she had given him a B+ in algebra, which prevented him from going to college. He said as a result, he was drafted into the Vietnam War and became a prisoner of war. This was obviously not true, as his mother had stated he was a liar, and he was actually voted most likely to succeed by his classmates. So he could have gone to any college he wanted to.
So, okay, how did his classmates see him, though? Like, if his mom's over here fearful of him, he put this whole show on for his classmates.
So during this whole ordeal, he is still going into work every day like everything's fine. He would leave them locked in the closet until he returned. He also told her that he would kill her husband and their son if she ever tried to escape. Now, obviously, Irv realized something was wrong on day one. He was at home waiting for them to return from the beauty salon and got really worried when they didn't come home by the time he had expected them to. He actually ended up calling the salon, who confirmed that they had left at 4:30 p.m. Irv called the police later that night. The police, however, were more concerned with Jason's disappearance. So Jason's friend, you had asked me about him earlier?
Yes.
Jason's friend actually reported the abduction. He never saw what was in the trunk, of course, so he didn't tell the officers what Jason saw.
Right.
Because he didn't see him. He didn't know to report the abduction.
I mean, at least he knew to go report that he had took Jason.
Yeah. Irv recalls that day saying, "We were not a priority." An hour or two later, an officer came by, and I could tell he sensed this was a domestic problem. The next morning, investigators were searching the park where Jason had been taken, and they found Mary's license plate from her car. And I guess some brush had ripped it off whenever she was trying to get away really fast.
Oh, wow.
Finally, police had a connection between the disappearances, and at this point, almost 300 officers and volunteers began searching for Mary and Beth. Now, back at Shu's house, he was raping Mary on a daily basis, and eventually, Mary was worried he would turn his attention to her daughter. However, he stated to her, "Whatever else I am, I'm not a child molester." And thank God he kept his word, because he never raped Beth, or make her watch the rapes, but he did threaten to do so.
Also, what I had read was that he complained that when he was raping Mary, that she wasn't showing him any affection. And to make her show affection, he had tried to suffocate Beth one time. And so Mary ended up kissing him on the lips to make him stop.
Through the 53-day ordeal, he eventually started to lax up on their restraints. They were allowed to eat upstairs in the kitchen together, and he actually bought Beth a TV and some board games that they played together, and started referring to Beth as Bethy, though he never untied them from each other. And this is actually the closet. So that's this is the closet. This is the TV outside of the room. So look how small.
That's really small. That's super tiny.
He even started taking them out in public. He took them to the mall where he bought them new clothes, because obviously he can't take them out in the same clothes that he abducted them in. And even to a job fair in Chicago. He would keep Beth extremely close to him to prevent Mary from trying to run off, and she stated, "As long as he had Beth, he had control of me." Same, Mary. I'm a mom, and I would have done anything. I mean, if you've got my daughter...
As long as my child is safe.
Yeah, if you have my daughter, if you have my son, I mean, it doesn't matter. You've got me. You got me. Every day, Mary would read her Bible to her daughter, and they would say prayers. They would even pray for Shu. "You're a better person than I am." because
Very much so, because I wouldn't have the heart to do that.
Nope. Beth even told her mother, quote, "Mom, we have to pretend to like him." Mary said, "That's a powerful statement because the Bible says to love your enemies." On the morning of July 7th, Shu made an announcement that he knew that they couldn't stay in this house forever and that he would be buying a camper and leaving with them in tow. At this point, Mary knew that she needed to act fast because if he left with them, no one would even begin to know where to look for them.
Right.
And especially if they're in a camper where they're constantly moving, police would never catch up.
Right.
Still chained to her daughter, our badass Mary managed to break open the door by removing a pin in the hinge and called the police from Shu's phone while he was at work. Now, this patient Christian woman was put on hold twice.
Are you kidding me?
Not once, but twice by the police.
How do you get put? Hey, I'm kidnapped. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Can you hold for a minute, please?
Right. When a sheriff finally answered the phone, he says that she was super calm. Just like, hey, this is who I am. This is where I'm at. Like, she wasn't freaking. Yeah.
I would have been freaking out. Like, listen here, you.
Do not put me on hold again. Yeah.
I'm kidnapped.
Come and
freaking
get me. Like, good Lord. Yes. So put on hold twice. She told them who she was and where she was thanks to a laundromat receipt she had actually found in the closet. And then made her way outside with her daughter where they hid behind one of Shu's old cars and waited for the police, who thankfully arrived only minutes later.
At least they were quick with that.
Yeah. That's when finally learned of their escape, and they showed up at the police station, still chained together with cables and bicycle hooks. Shu was arrested at his electronics shop that same day. That's when
my gosh.
That's when they got to the police station, and that's what they were restrained with. And look at Beth. I mean,
so tiny, so innocent.
This complete nut job. Just days after his imprisonment, Shu contracted his original cellmate, Richard Green, who was being released from jail, to kill Mary and Beth in order to prevent them from testifying and to help him escape. Shu mailed his ex-inmate a $1,000 check with the promise of another $50,000 after the deed was done. According to the formal district court report, Green admitted to the contract, but only after the second FBI interview and after the FBI had monitored Shu's finances and knew about the payment. So it's not like he just came forward and was like, "Hey, this is happening." Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
After a 10-day federal trial, the jury found Shu guilty of kidnapping. Prior to the trial, Shu had told one of the psychiatrists that he knew the location of Jason Wilkman's body, but would not reveal it.
Why do that?
Yeah, because he's a messed up human being. They always do this as one last hoorah. They know where their murder victim is.
I know you want this information.
Yeah,
I'm not giving it to you.
I'm not giving it to you just to hold on to something. It's awful.
You're such a POS.
Yeah, a lot of people say these murderers who won't tell people and so that they can screw with the family too, which is terrible.
Which is their thing because they got caught. But they still, like you said, want control from the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So sentencing was withheld until a deal could be made with Shu to locate Jason. The Ramsey Court Attorney's Office agreed to not charge Shu with first-degree murder, and in late October, he led authorities to Carlos Avery, where they found Jason had been killed by blunt force trauma to the back of his head, perhaps by the missing tire iron or by the handle of his gun. I'm pretty sure that it was the tire iron though, because Beth had stated that while she wasn't blindfolded in the trunk, and she said that there was a metal rod laying behind it, and that she saw Shu grab it when he took Jason.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. During the trial for killing Jason, this time in Sonora County District Court, Mary had to testify again. She says, "As I'm answering questions, all of a sudden, Ming jumps up from his chair, runs behind me, grabs me by my neck, and holds a knife to the front of me and says, 'Get back or I'll kill her.' A lieutenant who had been outside the courtroom waiting to testify rushed in and grabbed her off the stand and brought her back to the judge's chambers." She says, "Somewhere in the scuffle, I had gotten cut," Mary said, from a slice that went from her chin all the way up to the corner of her mouth. She said maybe the idea was that if I can't have her, nobody else can either. Mary received 62 stitches.
That's a lot.
Do your job. He's an inmate at this point.
Right. How was he
trial
even
for
able
murder.
to even get up?
How did he get a knife into the courtroom? Security guard didn't do his job. The prisoner
Why was he
system.
not handcuffed?
Right. You get a knife out of prison all the way to a courthouse. You had to go through security at the prison. You had to go through security at the courthouse.
Right.
Do your job. Your sole
It should
job.
have never happened.
No, it shouldn't. Your sole job is to make sure that this doesn't happen.
Right. You know clearly he's capable of anything.
Yeah, obviously the search, from the prison was done incorrectly. The search at the courthouse was done incorrectly. And because of this, Mary suffers at this man's hands once again.
If they even did a search.
Who knows? Of course, the second trial was delayed. After the trial resumed, she was found guilty of kidnapping and second-degree murder and was sentenced to 40 years to serve consecutively with the sentence for Mary. And that's him now.
He still looks the same, just an old
Version.
weird-looking
Creeper.
Yeah.
So where is she now? An interview with Lifetime, Mary Stauffer says it was important for her to share her story, and there were times where she questioned her faith. She said, "We pray for Ming. We hated what he did, but we didn't hate him." Mary says after her ordeal, which she says doesn't define her, she and her husband were able to finish their missionary careers and retire. They have been happy to see their children get married and have children of their own. Beth says, "He didn't ruin our lives. He ruined his." She continues, "He took 53 days of our lives. He doesn't get another one."
Good.
Good for you guys. Beth actually has children of her own now.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm really glad they can see a positive outcome and overcome bad things. Because, some people can't. It ruins their entire life. They can't overcome it.
But I think that that's one of the reasons that this true crime, I always tell people, whenever they ask me, why are you interested in true crime? For me, at least, now I'm not going to speak for the entirety of the true crime, especially true crime podcasters, but for me, at least, it's the interesting idea of what the heck went wrong with you.
Right.
It's not the murder, it's not the gore, it's not the gross aspects, it's certainly not the rape.
And mine is like, why?
It's why.
What goes through your brain to push you to this point?
Right.
Or even, like, your survivor tales, where you do have the ones that survive, and I wonder what goes through their head. Like, I think I would freak out.
I know that I would. If I was being held somewhere for a long period of time, I think that I would eventually get my wits about me.
Yes.
But, like, in Carrie's situation, she was only in, I say only, that's a terrible way to put it, but, 18 hours.
Right.
And she, at that point, she had the idea to leave stuff behind, to drop stuff, to make sure that people knew she was there, to leave that footprints.
And
I wouldn't have my wits about me in that time frame.
And I think Mary, where she was held captive, got her wits, and if I don't do something now, I'll never be found, and I'll go through this for the rest of my life, and God only knows what he'll do to my daughter.
Right.
So, she got her wits to break out of that closet and call and get help.
Yeah. And so, I just, like I said, it goes back to, just the idea of, like, of the why behind it. And I love the idea of just being able to really focus on the victims, because I feel like so many reports and tabloids, because everybody's interested in true crime to some extent. They might not admit it as far as we're admitting it on a national podcast, but they wouldn't produce those types of headlines if they didn't, if people weren't interested in it.
That and I pray to God that nothing ever happens to anybody, but if you're in a situation where you need to be strong, or you need to dig down deep. Sometimes you hear stories about other women that empower you.
Exactly.
And push you to do better, or push you to do what you need to do for yourself. And
exactly.
I think some of those stories, kind of when I'm having a down day, or, questioning things, I'm like, oh no, I got this. Like, and now there are way more badass women out there than me, like Mary, like our previous episode. I think, like you said, everyone looks at it differently.
Yeah. And I think it's just important to make sure that whenever we are telling these stories that we're focusing on the victim and not the piece of crap murderer, not the piece of crap abductor. And, like you said, because if we put the victim story out there, we could be empowering another person. Right. So that's kind of the why behind what we do and like kind of why we think that something like a true crime podcast is important.
We did not get any stories from our freaky family members, so make sure you guys send those in. But Michelle is going to tell me some freaky little facts, and I'm really not sure what it entails.
Yes, so I have some freaky facts for us about wine.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, I've got a big list
what
here.
What kind of freaky facts can you have about wine?
There's some freaky facts about wine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down.
So, and I have a big list here. I am not going to read all of them. Apparently, the absolute and legitimate fear of wine is called enophobia.
Enophobia, like you're scared of wine?
Yes, it's the fear of wine.
Why would you be scared of wine?
I don't know, but it's out there. People have it.
Oh, you poor people.
Poor people.
Y'all are missing out.
Yes. By law, you are not allowed to swallow wine during a wine tasting in Utah.
We don't need We do not need to go to Utah. I mean, we do a lot of wine tastings, and we
will not be going there.
What? I mean, what are they going to do? What if I accidentally
They spit it out.
Okay, what if I don't? You going to arrest me?
Good point. Didn't think about that.
Like, I mean, you're drinking something. I feel like that would be, because of course I'm not from Utah. I didn't grow up there. But if I'm drinking something, I want to swallow my drink. Yeah. Why?
Utah actually has some really, this isn't one of my freaky facts, but Utah actually has some really, really weird laws around alcohol. So we actually were there snowboarding on a snowboarding trip. And we all went and we were going to grab a beer, like with our lunch. And so we get there. And it turns out, like, we were looking at these bottles of beer. They all have the same alcohol content. And I want to say that it's like 4-point-something%. I don't know the exact number. So, like, you can buy a Budweiser and a Bud Light, same alcohol content. They are not allowed to produce beers that are above a certain alcohol content.
So what, do the manufacturers have to
they do.
Create it specifically for Utah?
Yes, and they do it.
I mean, yeah, they
label
do
it
because they
want to sell their beer, yeah.
But, is it tested? Do they just smack a label on there and say, hey, this is the percentage, but really, it's just the normal percentage?
I do not know.
You're going to have to check that out.
Absolutely.
Next.
Bottles with animal symbols on the label are known as critter wine.
I'm never going to look at wine the same.
Wine-flavored Kit Kats are a thing. You can buy them on Amazon.
I have had alcoholic gummies.
Which we're going to do for you guys in one of our episodes.
Yes, we will.
That's going to be a fun one.
But I haven't had a wine-flavored Kit Kat. Now that I think about the critters deal, there's one I see in the grocery store. 14 Hands has a horse on it.
It's critter wine.
A horse is not a critter.
It says animal symbols.
When I think of a critter, I think of something small, like a bug or a spider or something like that.
It sounds like a very southern term.
Well,
get me some of that. Pass me over that critter wine. There is a Greek god of wine called Dionysus. So, there you
Dionysus.
Go. Yes.
Wow.
A medieval measurement for the liquid volume of wine is a butt.
A butt?
A butt.
Huh.
The oldest known wine cellar is on the Titanic. When divers went down to the wreckage, surprisingly, most of the bottles are still intact.
Why did they not get it? And put
they
it,
should
like,
have brought
in
it
the
to
museums and stuff.
I agree. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, let's drink it.
Maybe not. Drink it.
But,
yes.
I bet it's pretty cold.
I'm sure it's very well chilled. Women are better wine tasters. #girl power.
Of course we are.
Because wine tasting has so much to do with smell, and women, especially those of reproductive age, hello, have a better sense of smell than men. Yes. During the early Roman times, it was forbidden for women to drink wine. Wives who were caught by their husbands drinking wine could be killed if caught in the act.
So who drank wine? Just the men?
Apparently. We see how the times have changed.
Well, yeah, because not many men drink wine, and I think that's very unfair. So
I completely agree.
kill me, I guess.
Right. We would have been dead. You can join our freaky little family, both on Instagram and Facebook, at
Sips of Crime.
For a chance to have your story featured on one of our future episodes, send us a Gmail
to sipsofcrime@gmail.com.
And you can find all of our episodes on any platform that you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening. Stay alive.